Welcome to Marketing, Media, and Money, your go-to podcast for proven profitable strategies, secrets, and resources from industry experts and global influencers to help you scale your business, shorten your learning curve, and stand out in a crowded, noisy marketplace. Here's your host, award-winning marketing and media strategist and international speaker, Patty Farmer.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Marketing, Media, and Money podcast. Really excited to be here with you today because we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is sales. But more than that, we're going to talk about mastering the art of selling nothing. And how does that actually increase sales? Stay tuned because we're actually going to tell you all about that. My guest today is an expert on this very thing, has created a system for it and a book. But he's going to share his wisdom and expertise with you and give you some really, really great tips that today you can implement in your business. So let me tell you a little bit about him. Since 2017, sales coach and game changer trainer to top producers, Joe Pallo has guided his clients to double or triple their production without working harder. His emphasis on mastering the art of making the emotional connection during any sale makes a dramatic, favorable impact in the bottom line and beyond. And until you're okay with selling nothing, you won't sell anything. Joe is an Amazon bestseller, author of How to Sell Nothing, The Logical Way to Make the Emotional Sale, the salesperson's guide to what really happens during a sale. He is the master in the art of emotional sales, referrals, and the creator of the E.A.R.N.I.N.G Sales System. So, Joe, I'm so happy to have you here with me today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Patty. I'm glad to be here. And I've been watching you for a while, and I'm excited to be a little sliver of all the things that you do. So I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, thank you so much, Joe. In full disclosure, Joe writes for our magazine, too. So the Marketing, Media, and Money magazine. And we'll tell you a little later on how to get that if you haven't already. But he is such an expert in this field that we really want to share him across all my audience. So let's just dive right in. So, Joe, one of your core beliefs is until you are okay with selling nothing, you won't sell anything. So can you expand on this philosophy and how it fundamentally changes a salesperson's approach?
Sure. I guess what I'm saying, selling nothing is based on emotions, and emotions are weird and fickle things. It's the emotional sale. And until we're okay with engaging there, not just the logical sale, we need to have that piece. The emotional sale is where it happens. And you have to be willing to understand the relationship. Emotions are weird and fickle. We always have to be changing our perspective on what a relationship is, what they want and why they want it. That is the art of selling nothing. Have them say what they want and why they want it. And then we just sell that.
Boy, that is so important because I think so many times people in advance decide what they need and they think they know better. And that's what they try to sell them. And that doesn't always work. So I think this is a game changer just in that approach. But why do you believe that making the emotional connection during a sale is crucial? And how can salespeople effectively achieve this?
Well, the emotional sale piece is, I need them to say what they want and why they want it. And now before I engage, I never speak, teach, sell, train, or coach until I get them emotionally engaged because they're not listening. I look at it, if we have two sales or two buckets, a logical bucket, an emotional bucket, both have to be filled to get the next step. The logical bucket's filled with my voice. I'm an expert on it. I'm the salesperson. The emotional bucket, and there's the key, is filled with their voice. I need their words to fill up that bucket. If I get both buckets filled, we'll get the next step.
I think that's important. How do these emotional connections impact the bottom line?
It kind of goes with the emotional piece. We all sell the same thing. There's a story, and if it's all right with you, I'm going to use a swear word. And I normally don't swear, but the story works out well. It's happened when I was in college. This demonstrates a logic and emotional sale. where I was at a convention. I sold a semi-load full of chicken shit. And it was just the organic certified farmers the convention. We went there to sell it. We had our little jars there, and someone else across the way had done the exact same thing. So there's two of us selling the exact same product. So I went over to watch his pitch, and I kind of timed it to where he came up, and I watched it. And this guy, he knew his shit. He knew his NPK value. He knew about could be used as a cattle feed supplement. All these technical and logical things, he knew it, and he could just rattle on and on and on about it. And I'm sitting there thinking, holy crap, this guy knows his shit, and I don't know shit about my shit. And I'm looking at his samples, I'm thinking, is his shit the same as my shit? Is his shit better than my shit? Does he have good shit? Do we have bad shit? Thinking all these shitty thoughts, and watched him do it. And then I came back to our booth, and I'm sitting there thinking, we're in deep shit. And then I see one of the guys who just was pitched coming towards us. And I realized, one, I'm in deep shit because I can't compete with that guy. So I realized I cannot really ask him. I can't make that logical sale. I need to just get him talking before he gets me talking. So I just started asking questions. How long have you been farming? How big's your farm? How much is organic? When did you change? What was the best thing? What was the worst thing? I asked question after question because I didn't know shit about my shit. And I did that as long, it seemed like 4 days. It was like maybe 20 minutes of questions, which is a huge amount of time. And finally he says, well, I reckon I might not better ought to get some, which I think that means he wanted one. And I said, you want a whole load or a semi-load? And that was what it was. It wasn't our product. We all sell the same shit. It's the relationship. Because I asked those questions, I established a relationship with them. That was the emotional sale. Logically, we all sell the same thing.
That's a great story. And I think it is really important because I think also when you ask people questions, then that tells them that, well, if you listen, sometimes people ask questions and they just wait for you to pause so they can ask the next question. But I mean, if you actively listen and they can feel that you are listening to them, then everybody wants to be heard. Not only that, but as somebody who's an expert in marketing, I also feel like if you let them do the talking, whatever it is that they tell you, they'll know you're listening when you use those same exact words when you're talking to them later. They actually tell you pretty much how to sell them. But I know that you talk a lot, and I know we've had this conversation before about dig-in questions and how they help you fill the emotional bucket. And your story pretty much just told that. But what are dig-in questions? And more importantly, I'm sure my audience wants to know, could you give us some examples of some good dig-in questions?
Sure. Let me add one point before I do that. I was talking before about both buckets and the importance of having them filled. I think a lot of times we all go out and your audience members, they have a great sales meeting, a great meeting. They're laughing at your jokes, they're asking questions, and you come back with, hey, can you come back in 2 weeks? I want to see your proposal. We had both buckets filled. We come back 2 weeks later, and that meeting's different. They're cold. Their arms are crossed. Well, the thing is, let's talk about the buckets. The logical bucket's finite. If you have a bucket full of water, you can't put any more water in. You have a client logically sold, you can't sell logic anymore. The emotional bucket, again, filled with their words, has holes in it. When you come back at follow-up meetings, we still got to get them re-engaged and get them with their words to fill up their emotional bucket at the second meeting before we go logical. So I want to put that in context. How we fill up that emotional bucket is done with the dig-in questions. And it came with, whenever they're talking, I was just thinking, well, why is that? And they'd answer a question, well, why is that? Well, why is that? Well, why is that? Well, why is that? And you can't ask that because that's kind of creepy and weird. But that's all dig-in questions are, is just different ways of asking, why is that? If someone says, let's say I'm a financial advisor, I just want to be comfortable. Okay, well, you want to say, why is that? Well, I'd say, well, what does that look like? That's a dig-in question. Examples of dig-in questions. How so? Can you say that again? What does that look like? What else? What else is probably the most underused word in sales and probably the most important? What else? Can you tell me more? Can you say that again? I will ask dig-in question after dig-in question because I envision that's filling up their emotional bucket. That is why they want to work with me. That's why they're going to take the next step. And when I come back at the second meeting, the emotional bucket again has holes in it. I got to retouch on that. Big piece at the second meeting, I say, hey, at a first meeting, we were talking about this. I've got the logical piece over here. I've got your presentation or my demo ready or my proposal. But before I do that, you were talking about how important this is. Tell me more about that. And just be quiet. Let them, again, refill their emotional bucket. So
that makes so much sense.
Also, can you say that again? What else? What does that look like? Tell me more. Just it's a different way of saying why is that, and why is that?
I think that makes a lot of sense. And then before you're asking those questions, you have to have heard their answer. So to say, tell me more, or why is that, to know which one of those dig-in questions, which I love those, to ask makes sense according to what they said, right? So you are actively listening. And I think it's a skill set that can be learned easily, right? As long as you understand that you're not just rattling off, oh, let me ask this one, this one. And you actually are listening to the appropriate one, for what it is that they're saying. So how would you get your prospects or whoever you're talking to openly share what they want and why they want it, so you do get that like meaningful and effective sales interaction?
I'm very transparent. I'm very simple. Let's say if I was talking to you and I'll say, hey, Patty, as we go forward, it's our first meeting. One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask a lot of questions, making sure I'm really crystal clear on what you want. I want to make sure we know that. The second thing I'm going to do is maybe a little bit different. I'm going to ask you questions on why you want it. And some of your answers may be goofy or weird or awkward or doesn't make sense, but it's important for me because me hearing you say what you want and why you want it makes a big difference on what I'm going to do with you. And I want to make sure we're on the same page. But it's important for you to hear yourself say what you want and why you want it, because it clarifies your thinking, crystallizes what you want. And I want to make sure we're going in the right direction. Is that okay? I've just asked for permission, basically, to make the emotional sale.
And I think that's good too, because I think when you tell people up front that you're going to be asking them questions, but you tell them why, and the why you're asking them, you're letting them know is so that you can better serve them and be able to give them the options that best serve them, then it doesn't seem creepy or make you think, why are you asking me all these questions? Where sometimes if somebody just started, asking you all these questions, it would seem like an interrogation or salesy, right? If you come across like, oh, you're just asking me these questions because pretty soon you're just going to throw this sales thing at me and I'd have my guard up. But as soon as you ask me for permission and then told me why I'm asking you these questions so that you have clarity and I have clarity, thus this way, if we choose to move forward, I'm helping serve you in the way you want to be served. So I think that is really important. So I love that.
It's a servant selling mentality. That's exactly what
serve not sell is, the name of the game for me. So I love it, which is why we get along so well, right?
Yep.
So Joe, I know you have your E.A.R.N.I.N.G, which is a trademark. And I love things that are acronyms. So E.A.R.N.I.N.G Sales System. So can you tell us what each letter stands for and what are the key components?
Okay.
And most importantly, how does it integrate into the concept of selling nothing? I know I asked you a lot there, but I think you got it.
Yeah, thanks for a real simple question. Thanks. First, it's the mentality that whoever's talking is buying in a selling situation. If I'm trying to sell you and I'm talking more than you are, I'm literally buying your objections. The E.A.R.N.I.N.G system is a way to get them talking, and it meshes in with the dig-in questions. They go hand in hand. The dig-in questions could be used on any sales approach, but the E.A.R.N.I.N.G piece is kind of a battle plan of what the conversation is going to look like. And we all know you have battle plans the night before. You're all organized. The battle starts. You take the plan. You chuck it out the window. Same as a sales call. Ideally, you want to go through in this order. It's an acronym. Each letter stands for something we want to touch on, but it's not. So it keeps us on track. The E just stands for evaluate their current reality. That's your data gather. And I think we do that. We're pretty good. But I look at it, if I'm going to make an apples to apples comparison, I have to ask enough questions to know what type of apples you have. If I'm showing you something different, apples to oranges, I still need to ask enough questions to know what type of apples you're starting with. So E is just evaluate their current reality. I think we do that. The A is what are the advantages of what they're doing right now? What's going good? What do they like about their current vendor? And I get pushback saying, hey, Joe, I don't like asking that question because I'm talking them into staying with their current vendor. And I love asking that question for a couple of reasons. One, I do things differently. I get different results. I mean, it differentiates you from all of your clients. And what do you like about it? 2, screams confidence. If I'm asking, what do you like about your current vendor? I'm coming from a place of strength where it doesn't bother me. Business is given to confident people. Third reason, it's the biggest. When I ask what are their advantages, they're literally telling me their hot buttons. Whatever they say they like, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, ding, ding, ding. I got to close on that, and whether it's 5 minutes or 5 weeks or 5 months. And I'm not going to know unless they ask it. That's the E and the A. R is revise. What do they want to change? This is the major reason why they're going to go forward. I don't lead off with it. I don't want to do a show up, throw up. I want to know what they want to change, but I want to know that. And I'm of the mindset that as busy as we are nowadays, if I'm talking to somebody, they have a problem either with their sales or their team. Otherwise, we wouldn't be there. So you're having that conversation. We need to know what they want to change. That's R, E-A-R, price. N is no. Who can say no to this? Who else needs to be involved in the decision-making process? There are some times I will step away from a presentation if I don't have the right people there. Sometimes you can't. You got to be professionally and politely. But I really don't want to get in that conversation until I at least try to get everybody there. So that's E-A-R-N. I interpret back what they just said. That is a key piece. You ask for a key piece, that is one of them. Let's say, hey, just for clarity, Patty, I'm going to go through and just kind of repeat back what I hear. Is that okay? And they'll say, yeah, and just go on a rant. And that is a great spot to be in because literally it proves that you're listening. Biggest complaint in sales is no one listens to me. So by me asking all those questions, I'm just repeating back what they said in their words. And you hear things like, well, crap, Pallo, you said it better than I did. And mentally, I'm on their side of the table and I have not even started selling yet.
But not only that, at that point too, like I know sometimes when I speak out loud or I hear myself, I'm thinking, no, that's not exactly what I meant, right? So when you repeat it back to them, it also gives them a moment to be able to say, yeah, I know I said that, but now that I'm thinking about it and I'm hearing you say it, I also want to do this, or it helps them to get any more clarity on anything they might want to add or change.
Think how important that is. If they said something, in my mind, I'm going to sell that. But if I repeat it back and they did what they wait, I did say that, but this is what I really meant. I am now selling what they want to buy versus selling something wrong they don't want to buy. Huge piece there. Yes, I agree with that. So the E-A-R-N, I interpret back. Second N, nothing. What if nothing changes? And I ask that to create a sense of urgency. Hey, just curious, if we don't have this piece fixed and you repeat it back to them, what does it look like next year? And odds are I'm going to get a fluff answer. It's not really worth anything. I said, well, what else? Tell me more about that. I'm going to create a little uncomfortness about their problem because that's what's going to get them to go to the next step. If I don't do that, they'll say, well, we'll look at it next quarter. And then the G is the gain. What's the pay value? If we have all these things fixed, we took this piece of work and took it off your desk and you cleared up 2 hours a week, what would you do with those 2 hours? What would that part look like? If this problem was fixed, what would you allow that to do? Have not even started selling yet. And again, in between all of that earning piece, I'm asking dig-in question after dig-in question after dig-in question.
I love that. And I know that in all the conversations we've had, one of the things that you and I are both right on the same page with is mastering referrals, right? And both of us really believe that, you really aren't going to get referrals until you build relationships, right? You have to do it right. That's really the most important part. And I know that you teach that. So what are the key strategies that you teach for mastering referrals, and why are referrals such a powerful tool in sales?
I think we have to look at our thinking first. And again, nothing changes till our thinking. Our thinking on referrals, I think, is really backwards. We all know they're important. We're all told to forget them, but we're passive. Referrals are, oh, by the way. That is a big piece of it with referrals. In my mind, they're more important than the sale. I'll say that again. Referrals are more important than the sale. This stems from years ago when I was selling custom suits at Tom James. Went and pitched a guy for custom suits, Lyle Hemmingson. He said no to me. did not buy a suit, but he gave me 4 referrals because he liked me because of the relationship. 18 months later, I had 80 clients at Thrive Financial. There's no way his business could equate to what I gained from that. Same thing happened to St. Paul companies. Sent a mailer to Mike Conroy, sold him a suit, gave me 3 referrals. 2 years later, I had 150 clients at that company. Had my own ID, my parking spot. Referrals are more important than the sale. We have to treat them that way. There's nothing passive about referrals. It's not, oh, by the way. It is intentional, and it is a focus, and it is a mini sale. The other part we look at, when we started selling all the parts, all the cycles, steps of the sale, we were horrible at all of them. We were terrible. All of us were. But through repetition and experience and really focused, we got pretty good at a couple of them. Maybe it's at establishing trust, or maybe it's at creating a buying atmosphere, or finding a need. But when it comes to referrals, 98% of us were still rookies. We've never let this one sliver get on par with everything else. That's where the exponential growth comes from.
And one of the things that I think too is, I come from a networking background, right? And one of the things that has always really kind of made me think, why? Would be when people belong to networking organizations, that just means you both paid, if it's a paid one, to join this networking organization. But nobody should think that just because you paid money to join a networking organization that you still don't have to earn the referral. That people are just going to refer you business because they're in the same organization as you. And people belong to more than one organization. So like, say you're in the mortgage business and you belong to 4 different networking organizations. I'm sure there's a realtor in every one of those networking organizations. And still, you have to build a relationship so you know which one is the right realtor for the referral that you're going to make. And people shouldn't just assume that, oh yeah, I paid, $300 or $500 to join this organization, which means I'm going to be able to sit back, do nothing, and everybody's just going to refer business to me. I see this mistake over and over and over again. And I feel like when you're mastering the art of referral, it's also mastering the art of teaching your partners, your strategic partners, how to refer to you as well.
I absolutely agree with the networking piece. I've been straight commission my entire life. I've never really worked the networking groups just because of what you said. Referrals are given to people. There has to be a relationship. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's relationships in networking group. What you said, people just expect, they're passive. Relationships are given to people. That's how the big focus is. So I actually kind of shy away from them. I've never gotten much out of it. My business has been, up until last year, I've never had any, I didn't have a website. I didn't do any podcasts like I'm doing now. I didn't have a book, didn't do any speaking. I just got referrals. Been doing it for the past 10 years because I build relationships with people. And back to what I was saying, this referral piece, we're rookies. We have to think like rookies. We need to realize we're going to get bad at it. And we have to get a script, a talking point, all those things that involve in sales. It's a sale, but we have to go back. We're a rookie on this part. It's not going to be easy right away. It's going to be awkward, but we will get better at it.
So I agree with you on that. I think that where we are right now, networking can be an accelerator to that, as long as you understand and don't assume that just because you belong to something, your work is done. It is about building relationships. And in all of the networking organizations I belong to, the emphasis is on building relationships, or I wouldn't be there. So I think we are learning that more and more, and it can, shorten your learning curve, but you still have to work. I mean, it's called networking. It's not net sitting. It's called networking, right? But here's the thing. I think one of the points I want to make here, and in this kind of question I'm going to curveball you right now, is that the where is so important. It's kind of like, so I'm going to say my point and then I'm going to bring it over to your earning thing. So sometimes in the networking organizations or wherever you meet people, events or whatever, and you decide that you're going to say, we know I love coffee, so we're just going to say we go have coffee. Just because somebody says they're going to go have coffee with you You don't get to sit down with them and have a 15-minute cup of coffee and then think they're going to refer all these people to you. Like they don't really know enough. So you have to build that relationship with them, and it's ongoing, right? It doesn't happen in 15 minutes. Now, going back to what you're saying, one of the things that I think is interesting, and there's always some challenges that people have, you're saying that we can't be passive in referrals and asking for referrals, and how important it is. So going back to the stories that you've just told, where would you say are the points in there that you should be asking for the referrals? So let me give you an example of what I mean. So you're having this conversation, you're making the emotional sale, and then you're getting to the logistics, and then you get them to say, yes, they trust you, you've got to them, whether that's taking 1 meeting or 2 meetings or however you got. When do you ask for the referral? Because for me, I'm a speaker, and as a speaker, we have a technique that's called seeding. We know how to seed things throughout our whole presentation and stuff. So do you seed the referrals through the whole thing? But when are you asking for the referral? After you close the sale and they've paid you and you've closed the sale, which is kind of, I think, when most people do it, like later on, they go back and say, oh, can I have a referral? Where would you say are some of the best places to ask for the to ask for the referral? And can you give us an example of how you may ask for it?
Sure. We go back we talk about the networking. I think we're saying the same thing. But if you're going to a networking group and you're looking to get names, to get referrals, that's where the mistake is. If you're going to a networking group to get relationships, now they're effective. And that's where I made mistakes, where I was looking at the wrong way. I was getting relationships with my clients. I just didn't apply that to that networking group. And it probably would work if I did that. I just have not. So I want to make sure we're clear on that. If you go with the right perspective, you're looking to get relationships, the referrals will come from there. As far as your question, when is it appropriate to ask for relationships? In both those two little examples, they had not even tried it in my product. One guy said no. One guy bought some custom suits. They weren't even delivered yet. He had no idea what I could really do. So it put the emphasis that I crossed the line mentally with them on a relationship. Hey, I like this kid. Maybe they saw something of themselves in me years ago. This is when I was young, skinny, and foolish. So they saw something they liked. There's a relationship there. So that's where I got them. You don't necessarily need to prove that point. Relationships are given to people. They have to have that part. As far as, do you need to sell the product first? I don't think so. It's whenever you should ask for a referral is when you feel comfortable with that relationship. And it's different with everybody. It's not a line in the sand, but mentally, there is a line there. When am I comfortable? When do I feel good about it? When have I had them tell me what they want and why they want it? When have they felt like they've been heard? That's when I'm comfortable asking for referrals. Sometimes it's hello. You can get people right away and they click with you and hey, you need to call so-and-so. We've all had that happen. Well, we've already crossed that line.
So you have these dig-in questions. So you have all these little things that I think are really fabulous, right? And, literally, I love your book just because it outlines all these really great things. Not only do I love your book, but I hand your book out to a lot of other people too. But with that said, can you give us a couple examples of, if you want to role play it or whatever, but give me a couple examples of how you would ask for a referral without coming out and just saying, so Joe, now that I've told you all this stuff, like, you have anybody you can refer to me? I mean, not that somebody would actually say that. People probably have said that.
Oh, that's true. Like when it comes to referrals, who do you know? And this is a sale. It's like me showing up for the first time saying, hey, I need this much, you need this much term, this much disability, you need to cut me a check. Business isn't done that way. We got to create the environment to ask for. We have to earn the right to ask for the referral. Exactly. We have to earn the right to ask for the next step. So let's say I'm talking to you. We'll do a live role play here.
Okay.
And this is, I just put on a referral roadmap, Cam, for one of the points we did. Patty, just curious, can I ask a question?
Absolutely, Joe.
Just wonder if you could help me out. We've been working together for, close to a year now. Just wanted to get some feedback on things that you liked about either working with me or my book or me work right on your magazine or just in general. What have you liked about working with me or my staff or Holly?
I think that the thing that I love the most, Joe, is that you always show up, that you're super generous, you always add value, and I love that you are always paying attention how you can serve my people, and it's never about you and it's always about them.
Cool. What else?
I think the other thing would be that you always remember everything I say, and whenever we have the next conversation, I love that you listen to me and that we can continue the conversation, not have to start at the beginning every single time. And so I really love that as well.
Cool. So if I heard you right, you love the part that I add value, I pay attention to detail, I'm very generous, I share what I do, then I remember things. When we come back, we don't have to go back over and restart and rehash. We can pick up right where we left off.
Absolutely.
Patty, who are two people who would appreciate those things?
I know a lot of people who would probably appreciate those things.
That's the ask. If we really look at it, before I ask for referrals, I get you to tell me, what do you like working about? Me, my team, my company, my product, whatever. And I write it down because I'm going to repeat it back. But I write it down. And even though I asked what else, because I wanted to get a little more, and then I just repeat it back and say, well, who are two people who would appreciate those things? That's a simplified referral. It doesn't get any simpler than that. And it's all relationship based.
Mm-hmm. I love that. That was really good. So I hope my audience is writing that down. See how simple that was? Because, immediately when somebody says that to you, immediately in your mind, a couple people's names come to mind, right? Immediately you start thinking, well, actually, I should tell, so-and-so, and I should introduce so-and-so, right? And you can make an introduction. And, when you make a referral, sometimes in my world, I know, like you said, you're not in the networking world as much, but for me, there's an actual referral, and then there's like an introduction, right? And to me, they're not exactly the same thing in my world. In my world, they're not exactly the same thing. And sometimes I actually really like an introduction because that's like the gift that keeps on giving, really, for me. Because sometimes people have to know a little bit more in order to make a referral, or else they feel funny about it. They're like, well, I'd love to tell such I don't know how to refer you. Like, what would I say? And, blah, blah, blah. Back in the old days in a sale, I remember when people were just like, oh, could you put some names down on a form? They would call that a referral. That wasn't really a referral. That was really a lead, right? Because you were just really giving them a name. And, it was kind of iffy about whether you were just going to hand people names and phone numbers of your friend because you didn't know what they were going to say to them. And that was kind of icky and salesy and ugly. And I don't think anybody does that anymore, right? But you're right. If we build a relationship, however, in my world, I would probably already have introduced you to people already. However, if I hadn't thought of it, or we're now in a sales conversation, which is a totally different conversation, based on everything you just shared so far, it would be very, very easy for me, just because of the experience I've had in just what we've talked about so far in this conversation, to be able to say, maybe I'd even ask a question back and say, well, you know what, Joe, I can think of a whole bunch of people that I think I'd want to introduce you to that probably could really use your help. Is there anybody specific you're looking for? Like, I might actually even ask some questions back, but now we're having a conversation about it. But definitely you're now top of mind for sure, right? So I love that. And I think it was very simple the way you said it. So I think that is really good. So thank you so much I kind of threw that curveball at you, and you actually handled it super, super well, Joe. So thank you so much.
Keep them coming. That's not a problem. But here's another point. If I asked you that question and you did not give me enough, if I asked you, what do you like working with me, to where I felt comfortable asking for referrals, well, then I probably shouldn't ask. But it makes me more confident to ask you for it by hearing that piece. So there's another piece that goes on with that. And I do agree. We've all done it. We're just giving names and numbers. I want to have those reasons why you like working with me, because that crystallizes who the people I want to work with.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yep.
So how can sales professionals build and, more importantly, maintain strong relationships with their clients to ensure long-term success? And what role does that emotional connection play once they're already your clients? to get repeat business. Because, right, it takes a lot more to acquire a new client than it is to build a relationship with the clients you already have.
Correct. There's a couple of things with the long-term relationships or stickiness of clients. One, I think, is how we bring them on board. Let's just use my coaching, for example. One of my first conversations I'm having with someone, and I'll go through expectations, things they can count on me to do, things I'd like to be able to count on them to do. And I'm very clear with detailed what those expectations are. And I ask if they want to have any input, any changes. That's a great conversation to have, but that's a piece we need to have with our clients and with our team members. It's the expectations right up front. Then you want to ask another critical question. Let's just see, Patty, you and I had that conversation. We talked about expectations, went through mine, and then what I'd like to be able to count on you. Then I'd ask you, hey, Patty, just curious, what should I say or what should I do if you're not doing something you said you were going to do? What should I say or what should I do if you're not doing something you said you could be hypothetically 5 weeks down the road, 5 months, 5 years down the road? What should I say? And be quiet and ask what else? Because right then their answer, that they're giving me permission to hold them accountable. That is the retention piece. We need to have that part. So that's one thing that I'd recommend.
I actually have a clause that says that in different words in my contracts.
Yeah. Then the other part is, I have all my clients, I literally say, hey, you have my permission to challenge me. This is not a relationship where it's my way or the highway. There's 100 ways to get across town. If I'm saying something you don't agree with, let me know. We'll work around it. But that empowers them to have their thought. And I don't want to have that conflict. But really, both those things are letting me be a servant to them. I really focus on what's going on in their lives, not just work-related. It's a relationship. That is the sale. The long-term clients, I've had clients been with me for 10 years. It's a relationship. I know what's going on. I know them. They're like, I have someone who cuts my yard or cuts my hair, mows my lawn. I got a car guy. Hello, you're my coach. It's always coming back to that emotional bucket. And I said that earlier, the emotional bucket has holes in it because they change. But
sure.
There's also a thing called trust that fills up those holes where you
Absolutely.
have control over your clients. They'll do whatever you say. And you still got to, even though you have that, you still got to go back and check that emotional bucket periodically with your clients.
Well, that's a know-like trust factor, which I think is really, really important. And I know that in all 23 years that I've been in business, only 2 times in 23 years have I said to a client, so and they're like, oh, we're talking about that clause in the contract where I said that I give you permission. I'm like, yes. And they're like, oh, okay, I remember now. Like, I don't even have to say it. All I had to do is reference it. And they're like, oh yeah, I'm doing that. Right. You know what I mean? And it kind of puts them in check. And it's a reality check for them. But the fact of the matter is, I love working with people who will put up resistance. I mean, if you're teaching people, whether it's sales, marketing, whatever, to build a business the way they want to build it, like you said, there's many ways to get across town. And I wouldn't want somebody to say yes, yes, yes to everything I'm saying if that's not really what they want to do. Because if I think that you like that, I'm going to continue in those strategies, and we need to be working together. We're a team, right? So I think that is just so important. And that's why, we all have teams, but you're also a team member to your clients. You're on the same team, and there has to be great conversation there. And that's where that trust is, that they know on both sides of that fence, they know that they come to you and say, that thing that doesn't really resonate with me. So we can look at something different. Fabulous. Thank you so much for trusting me to tell me. Yeah. And then on the other hand, when they're not doing the things that they said that they would do, they're not turning in their homework per se, that it's okay for you to be able to say, well, part of the reason that we're not getting here is because you said you would do this, this, and this. And, I need you to actually step up and get those things done, or I'm not going to be able to deliver on what I said I would do. And then let's have a conversation about that. So I think that the trust factor really goes both ways, and that you're on the same team. And so I love that when you're talking about clients. I also think that's how they will stay clients, and that's how they will refer other people too.
Yeah. Well, you look at it, if we do that critical question, what should I say or what should I do if you're not doing something you said you were going to do? When that situation arises, and be down the road or whatever, and you have to have that conversation, it's not your words, it's theirs. They can't get mad at you. we're saying their own words. They gave us permission to do that. So it's a great way to have that conversation. Another thing too, it'll probably be my third book because I'm starting a second one. But the principles in how to sell nothing, a logical way to make the emotional sale. Make sure we have 2 sales in order to get the next step. The same thing is in leadership, same thing with our clients. I started out just coaching and helping people with their personal production. I took all the principles of how to sell nothing. I could take the word out, sell, and put the word lead, and it works. Think about it. If we do the earning piece with a team member, that whole conversation works. The dig-in questions work. It works with our clients. It's the same conversation. Absolutely. And that's now my sales is probably more generated towards sales leaders. About half my business is towards sales leaders. I'm doing the same principles with their personal production, but now it's over here in leadership. It's the same thing. The principle works over here and it's fundamentally right and works, we can work it over here.
I love that because that's a great shift. So thinking about that, let's shift over kind of to, I know that you also train top producers. So what's your approach to training top producers and how do you ensure that they continue to grow without working harder? Because, for them, they don't want to work harder. They want to work smart.
Yeah, it's weird. It happened years ago when I first heard it, and I was just shocked. Where one of my clients said, Joe, if I make another 50 or 100 grand, it's not going to change my living. And this is what I wasn't making any money. Like, I want to be there someday. It was like just an eye opener. People like that really do exist. But it really shifted where my coaching and what they're looking for is they want to be a person of influence in someone else's life. They're looking for something else. That's the essence of my coaching. And if I continually doing that, saying, hey, how can I help you? How can I be servant mentality? I have a servant selling mentality. That is the whole way with clients. It's not about me. It's not about their numbers. It's a lot of different things. And even in working with clients, I'm maybe old school. One of the first things I do is I have them make a vision board. It's corny. It's dorky. It's weird.
Oh, it's effective.
It works.
It's very effective. It's very, very effective. I think it's effective and it's important because they need to actually you got to keep updating like your vision because it changes. At some point in time, like when you have kids and stuff, like, there's things that you're doing. As you get a little older, sometimes it shifts a little bit more to legacy, right? We kind of shift a little bit more to legacy. But I have to tell you, Joe, I remember, I think I had been a 7-figure earner for a few years. And I was really working hard. And I think it's like I'd really stepped up my speaking. I was traveling a lot more. And I remember like one time I came home and I was just tired. And I said to my husband, I need to figure out that I'm okay with making half the money I'm making if I'd only have to do half the work, right? But the fact of the matter is that's not the math. The math isn't to make half the money, you only have to do half the work. I mean, I wish that math did work, but it didn't.
Right.
And really, it was an eye-opener for me on what I really teach now, which is about I only do things that bring me joy and feed my soul, right? So that was kind of where I really needed to look at what I was doing and decided which things I wanted to continue to do. And so I had to pivot and shift a little bit. But I do think that what you're saying here is it's really, really important to know because sometimes you're just in I don't want to say a hustle, but you're making money. Like, like you said, if you're making $50,000 and, you've got third baby on the way and, or your kids are getting almost time, you got to start thinking about putting them in college or whatever the case may be, you're thinking a lot of times about money. And there's other times in our life where maybe money isn't the thing. Like I'm not motivated by money. Yeah. Not to say, it's not the driving motivator for me. I'm at a part in my life where I really care about making a difference. Yeah. Right. And there's nothing wrong with being motivated by money.
True.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with it as long as you do it the right way. It's the love of money, I think, is where the problem happens, right? But I think that it is a mindset shift, though. It's a mindset shift. So let's kind of talk about shifting to a mindset of being okay with selling nothing and how that can transform a salesperson's approach and their results. So whether you're a top producer, whether you're a salesperson, whether you're a team leader, shifting the mindset of being okay with selling nothing, how does that affect the bottom line?
Well, you look at it. Doctors can't fix you until you tell them how or why. You're not going to take the prescription. They don't even know what to do. Let's apply that in sales. I can't sell anyone until they tell me how and why. And let's just go back to that earning piece. Let's just say we are on a sales call, and it's old school where we recorded, we did a Zoom or whatever, and I'm on my game and I'm going through the earning process step by step, and in between there, I'm sprinkling in dig-in question after dig-in question and dig-in question. We recorded that whole conversation, and then we came back and we played it back, but we edited out my voice. We're left with my client, a prospect, sitting there telling me what's important to them, why they want it, what they want and why they want. I just sell that. It takes all the pressure off of selling. There is no selling. It's easy. Most people want to sell what they want to sell. I think it's easier to sell what they want to buy versus sell what I want to sell.
Absolutely.
That's the key piece. And that allows them to focus on those activities. We're talking about, top producers, how do they get more? I've referenced the vision board, and I think in terms of be, do, and have. And I ask them to do that. When you put things on your vision board, think of the haves. Those are the easy, things. So it's okay. What do you want to do? That's a little bit harder. But who do you want to be? That's where I want to coach. What type of role model do you want to be to your daughters? What type of spouse do you want to be? What type of person do you want to be? That's where I get the thing. And the same thing is, it's an emotional sale that I'm working with my clients. It's not logical. Top producers do not need more logic. They need the emotional reason.
I love that. So let's kind of talk a little bit about your book, How to Sell Nothing, right? Like I said, I already said I love the book. What would you say that it's, there's a lot of books out there. And I tell people all the time, I'm not in the information business. I'm in the transformation business. Google's in the information business, right? And and I know that, that there's a lot of books out there and they're very, very good. But reading one book, if you don't implement it, is not going to do a thing for you. You really need to implement what you read. So speaking about that, like I told you, I love your book, but what key insights from your book do you think that every salesperson should implement immediately to see results? Like, you can do things like I tell my clients too, you do this, this, and this, you will see results, but you got to do it, right? Yep. So if they read your book, right, and hopefully they're going to listen to this podcast because, man, you have really dropped some value nuggets here, Joe. So thank you so much for that. But what could they implement immediately in order to be able to get results?
There's three things. First one, you mentioned the earning piece. That is very transferable, doable, and it's very simple to do. And in that, the two pieces of the earning, repeat back what they just said, as I mentioned before. The other one, really key, what are the advantages? What do you like about what you're currently doing? We can't skip that step because that's what's going to cause them to go forward. Whatever they like, I got to have that. So those are the two pieces in the earning. The second is the dig-in questions. It just blows my mind. Sales, people think sales is icky. I don't like it. And used car sales. If you ask and dig-in questions, all that stuff goes away. If they sat there and told me what they want and why they're important, I just sell that. How confident am I they close?
I actually personally believe sales is service. Sales is service if you're doing it right. Yeah. Right? Sales is service if you're doing it right. So here's the thing. One of the things that we hear all the time in sales is, it's a numbers game, right? It's a numbers game, right? But I think I'm not in the numbers business. I'm in the people business, right? Mm-hmm. And people do business with people. That's what I always like to say, right? So how do you measure success in sales? How would you say beyond the numbers, right? What indicators? Everybody's always talking about indicators, which are very, very important, right? Because you got to be able to track and measure. So what indicators should salespeople pay attention to that will really reflect their true effectiveness? I know that's a toughie.
No, it is, but there's a lot of answers there, but I really think about it. It's new business coming in. If new clients, new introductions, new business generates new business. And that's the fun stuff. I think everyone gets most excited. First conversations, even the selling to the first onboarding piece, that's the good indicator of how you're doing. What's your new business like? And then the back piece is the communication. If I leave a message, how quick does it come back? That's another kind of key indicator and it's based on a relationship. You can't quantify it. We can quantify the new business, but that communication piece, you can't quantify that, but that's really the relationship. I mean, I'm confident with my clients, you are with yours. Do you know the people you can call? And they'll what do you need?
For sure.
And that's me. I'm doing things the right way.
You know, one of the things I say to people all the time, it doesn't matter how many phones your number is in. What matters is how many people will answer when you call.
Or call back. Well, either one.
Or
last two.
Back.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Or call back, right? And I think that is really important.
Yep.
So, Joe, let's kind of look in the future, right? Let's kind of look in the future. So what trends do you see shaping the future of sales? And how would you say professionals can stay ahead of the curve to remain competitive?
It's funny because I'm just creating a module on this piece because I'm seeing it more and more. Before COVID, we were all face-to-face. We got that. COVID shifted everything. We became virtual with that piece. I think we've gotten to the point where we're somewhat pretty good with the virtual piece, but I think we're missing a piece. And it's a key piece. When you had clients come in to see you, we had time. We're establishing rapport. We're talking about the grandkids, the lake. All those questions we ask about them really enhance the relationship. We can do that, and we're good. And we've had most of our clients have been around for a while. They've developed relationships where they're really solid. They have that stickiness. Well, when we're on Zoom or virtual, it's on both sides of the camera. We want to have a little chit-chat because we know we should, but we get down to business. We're missing that opportunity to really establish the relationship like we did before at the same level. We touch on it. They want to get down to business. I want to get down to business. We do it and we get on. And I think our existing clients that we brought on where we have that, we're going to retain those. But I think as we're bringing on new clients, I don't know if the relationship's at the same level before. We have to really be intentional about what we're doing with Zoom. And if we can, we have to push and try to get a face-to-face with them because your clients are actually at risk if you've not established that relationship.
Or at least on the phone. I mean, at least on the phone. Sometimes you really can't be in person. They may live in another country or whatever. But at least on the phone. And I do agree with you because I think that the people who've been my clients the longest, I mean, I know about their kids. I know the name of their dog. I know when they're going on vacation, you do have those things too. And you're right. A lot of times when people, like you said, in those coffee conversations, they want to get right to business. And, one of the ones that always cracks me up is when they say, okay, so we're going to have 30-minute call and you're going to get 15 minutes and I'm going to get 15 minutes. And that just cracks me up, right?
Yeah.
So I always like to say, well, really, how many times have I know this had happened to me in the past where you would have a conversation with somebody and before you even got on the call with them, you'd already checked them out. Thought, oh man, they are sharp. They would be like a great, and then you get on the phone with them. And if you jump the gun too fast, later on, you're thinking to yourself, man, I wish I'd had a better conversation with them because while their business model may mesh, industry wise, do they align with your vision and your beliefs and all that kind of stuff? And you don't know that until you actually have a conversation about something that is not business. People are always going to project business. And I'm going to give you a perfect example. I know I keep going back to the networking world. Mm-hmm. So people say this to me all the time. And it cracks me up when I say, well, who would you like me to introduce you to or something of that nature? And they'll say, well, and we're in a networking arena, right? And they'll say, well, I'd really like to be introduced to somebody who's struggling with sales, who's really having a hard time. And I just always stop them. And I say, well, how would I know that? And they're like, what? And I'm like, we're in a networking organization and they're all giving their elevator pitch and they're all trying to get clients. Who in a networking organization would actually, not a mastermind, like a mastermind, there's spaces for that, right?
Right.
But in a networking organization that people are paying for to get clients, are they going to stand up and say something like, man, I'm really struggling. I haven't had a client this past year and some of my past clients have left. But what I'm looking for is to be introduced to somebody who's looking for, I mean, come on, nobody's going to share that information. So why are you asking me like somebody that's struggling with that. I wouldn't know that. Tell me something I do know, right? So unless somebody's a good friend or something, people just don't go in public or get on Facebook and say, oh, I'm really struggling with blah, blah, blah. So I think sometimes people don't ask the right questions, which is why I love your dig-in questions and all of that, because I think people need to ask themselves, when would people give you that information? And so when you're putting that much pressure on somebody to ask them to ask those questions for you, I mean, come on, that isn't going to work, right? So I think it is really, really important that if you're going to ask something, to ask me something that I actually may know. Like, you know what I mean?
All right. I'm going to take what you said and look at the other side of the coin, because you're spot on with that. And it's kind of another referral. It's called the ideal referral deal. And it's where I look at character traits. Joe, who should I work with? Who do you want to work with? Let's do character traits of people I want to work with. My ideal clients are people who are smart, but feel they don't have to prove it. They care about someone or something else. They have batteries included. They don't drain me. They're honest. They're trustworthy. They're respectful of my time. Those are the people I want to get referred to. I take it away from everything else. I mean, a lot of times I'm struggling in sales. Let's go the other way. Because if we have those character traits, man, that's a home run for a client for me. If they have those traits, they're already probably successful. They're the ones I want to work with. But it's just asking, what are the character traits of people? So when you go to a networking group, that's a good way. Here are the traits of people I like working with, list it out. It's a cool list. It's a cool way to ask.
I love that. I love that. That is phenomenal. So, Joe, you have been fabulous and generous as always. But I always like to ask my clients, right? I always like to ask the people that are guests on my podcast, if you had to narrow it down to one marketing, media, money strategy, what would that strategy be?
Actually, it comes from the line of referrals. All we talk about is getting them, but what really the thing is we have to get those referrals to have a conversation. And there's a piece that I coach on. Actually, it's a gift. It's a silver bullets from silverbulletreferrals.com. But it's getting a silver bullet every time I get a referral. Silver bullet. I do not count referrals until I get a silver bullet. I will not count or call that person until I get a silver bullet. The silver bullet is basically something that I know that an average Joe on the street doesn't know. And what I want to do is draft off of their relationship onto my first voicemail, phone call, presentation. So silver bullet is something that I know that an average Joe on the street doesn't know. And I want to draft off that relationship.
That is perfect. And we're going to have the button below that you can just click on that and grab that, because he has a gift for you that is actually going to show you how to do that. So thank you so much, Joe. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I appreciate you so much sharing so generously like you always do.
Well, it has been a blast, and it's been like 5 minutes. It seems like we just talked for 5 minutes. It's been an hour. It's been fun.
I know. So to the audience, thank you so much for joining us. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please like, subscribe, and review the podcast on your favorite listening platform. And make sure to subscribe to our magazine at www.m3digitalmag.com. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you, Joe, for being here today. We'll see you all again next week.
Thank you for joining us today on the Marketing, Media, and Money podcast. To shorten your learning curve even more, make sure to grab your free copy of the Marketing, Media, and Money magazine at m3magazine.com. That's M3magazine.com. I promise your business will thank you.